24 hours. That's what the briefing said this morning. We assessed the window at approximately 24 hours. It didn't feel real when they said it, and it still doesn't now. They called me in late last night. Someone from the university's ROTC program handed me a sealed notice, no explanation, just instructions. Report to the DC Civil Defense Bunker. Apparently, this is what happens when you're a weapons systems trainee who scored high enough on their simulations. Suddenly, you're useful. Down here, we're watching everything. I'm not cleared for all of it, but enough leaks through. Satellites over the Pacific are tracking submarine movements, big ones. Russian boomers changing patrol patterns, Chinese missile silos going hot. A colleague of mine pointed out that 2 major air bases in Europe have gone completely dark, as if the planes already left the ground hours ago. Someone said B-2s have been circling silently since yesterday morning, loaded for whatever's coming. The word they keep using is posturing. Nobody has fired anything yet. Nothing's broken the threshold. But every indication is that someone, somewhere, is going to make the first move. In one of the rooms, analysts are watching telemetry feeds, plotting likely targets. The big ones are obvious. New York, DC, Chicago, Los Angeles. Then the second-tier command nodes, bases, infrastructure. Everyone in that room pretends to act calm, but nobody's looking anyone else in the eye. We already know which systems are live on our side. The ground-based interceptors in Alaska are armed. The missile fields in Montana are on full alert. There's talk that some of the Navy's ballistic missile submarines have surfaced just enough to show the other side they're ready. Like baring teeth. But no one knows if it's enough. Or if the other side even cares anymore. I overheard one general say we're closer now than we've ever been. That the quiet up there is worse than missiles screaming, because it means nobody's backing down. And once someone blinks, the rest happens fast. We've been told to keep watching our screens, to stay ready for whatever signal comes. That's what I'm doing. Watching, waiting, hoping that maybe all this really is just posturing. That maybe somebody somewhere finds a reason to stop. But the way they're all moving, the planes, the silos, the subs, it doesn't feel like a bluff. Not anymore. And here we are, counting down. 24 hours, they said. Maybe less. Maybe more. But the clock is already running. Down here, time feels different, slower, heavier. It's not much to look at, just concrete walls and fluorescent lights that never turn off. The air tastes stale and metallic, and there's this constant low hum from the generators that you can't ever quite tune out. People keep to themselves mostly. Soldiers line the corridors, rifles slung but hands always closed. Some stand at attention, others slump against the walls, staring at nothing. They look like statues until you catch the slight tremor in their fingers, or the way they keep glancing at the exit doors, like maybe they could run if they had to. Technicians sit at their consoles, adjusting dials that probably don't even need adjusting, just to keep busy. The monitors flicker with maps and numbers and streams of code. Every once in a while, one of them mutters something about telemetry or signal loss, but nobody really explains anything to the rest of us. A few civilians are here too. Support staff, I think. Maybe families of senior officers. They huddle in corners, clutching bags and blankets, speaking in whispers. There's a little boy sitting on the floor just across from me, drawing something in the dust with his finger. His mother keeps patting his head, but she looks more at the ceiling than at him. And then there's the quiet. That's the worst part. You can hear everything in it. The scrape of boots on concrete, the faint hiss of air vents, the nervous cough of someone trying not to sound nervous. Nobody talks about what happens if the order comes. Nobody asks how much food is stored here. Nobody asks if they'll ever see the sun again. We were told that this place could sustain operations for weeks if it had to. But sustain isn't the same as live. Down here, there are no windows, no fresh air, no day or night. Just the same buzzing lights, the same faint smell of oil and dust. You can feel the pressure pressing in from above, from the weight of everything that's about to happen. It seeps into you through the cracks, no matter how much you try to block it out. Sometimes someone tries to joke, a line about the cafeteria food or the way the toilets don't flush right. And for half a second, people will smile, even laugh softly, like they remember how. But the quiet always comes back, heavier than before. So we wait, listening to the hum of machines, the shuffle of boots, the nervous breath of strangers, wondering if the clock is still running, or if it already stopped and we just haven't heard it yet. Down here, you start to forget what the world even looks like. All you can picture is the ceiling above you, and what might be falling on the other side. Even down here, they talk about what's happening above. Not just the troops deploying or the planes circling overhead, but the monuments. Washington has always been full of stone and marble, symbols carved into the earth to remind everyone who we were, what we believed in. And now they're treating those stones like they matter just as much as the people hiding in basements. Yesterday, one of the officers mentioned teams being sent to cover the Lincoln Memorial. Apparently, they've built a temporary steel frame around the statue, lined it with sandbags and blast-resistant fabric. They say it won't stop a direct hit, but maybe, just maybe, it'll keep the pieces together long enough to rebuild. The Washington Monument is different. Too tall, too exposed. They've evacuated the area, sealed it off, and left it to fate. It's just a needle of white stone stabbing at the sky now, daring someone to try and break it. At the National Archives, workers in hazmat suits have been moving priceless documents, the Declaration, the Constitution, everything, into reinforced vaults deep underground. Some say those vaults could survive even if nothing else does. Even the Smithsonian has sent out crews. Not to save everything, there isn't time, but to wrap and store what they can. Artifacts packed into padded crates and lowered into basement bunkers, rows of history waiting in the dark. The Capitol building, they say, is rigged with fire suppression and structural bracing. Nobody expects it to survive untouched, but maybe they can stop it from collapsing completely, at least long enough to stand back up again someday. It's strange, isn't it? The way they're scrambling to save statues and papers, even as whole neighborhoods empty out, even as streets fill with abandoned cars. Like if they can just save a little piece of the past, maybe we'll have something to come back to. It makes you wonder, are we protecting these monuments? Or are they protecting us? Holding on to their weight so we remember what we're fighting for. Above ground, crews still work through the night, covering, bracing, hiding what they can. Down here, we just wait, imagining the sandbags piled high, the vault doors swinging shut, the marble columns wrapped in steel. Hoping it's enough. Hoping there'll still be something left to remember when it's over. The hours stretch longer down here, but something's changed. For the first time since I arrived, whispers float through the bunker. Rumors, fragments of news, voices trying to find solid ground in the chaos. A transmission crackled through the radio this morning. Officials say talks are still happening. They insist that a diplomatic solution might still hold. Some claim that satellite images show missile silos powering down, that a few ships have turned away from their patrol routes. But then another message came in, less hopeful. An intercepted signal suggesting a possible early launch sequence from a foreign command center. No confirmation, just static and scrambled words. The tension's thick enough to cut with a knife. Soldiers pace faster. Technicians work longer shifts, and the civilians grip each other a little tighter. No one dares to say it aloud, but we all know. Hope is fragile. The commanders hold meetings behind closed doors, their faces tight, their voices low. Sometimes I catch phrases, escalation risk, fail-safe procedures, stand-down orders. It's like watching a high-wire act without a net. One wrong move, and everything falls. Still, the thought of talks continuing, even just a chance, pulls at everyone's hearts. We want to believe that the world isn't ready to fall apart yet. But down here, the clock keeps ticking. And somewhere, above the layers of stone and steel, the question remains, will it be enough? The briefings came early this morning. 20 hours remain. There's no longer talk of if, only when. The intelligence is grim. Signals intercepted from multiple sources suggest that missile launches are imminent. Not just conventional warheads, but possibly nuclear warheads aimed at key NATO countries. Radar stations picked up unusual activity at missile silos deep in enemy territory. Submarines that were hidden yesterday have surfaced, and naval vessels are repositioning as if preparing for a strike. The list of targets has been laid out. Capitals, military bases, communication hubs, places that would cripple the Alliance's ability to respond. Inside the bunker, the atmosphere tightens even more. The hope from yesterday feels like a fragile thread now fraying fast. Still, procedures must continue. Soldiers check and recheck their weapons. Technicians monitor every blinking light, every sensor reading. Communications are kept open, but every message feels like a whisper in a storm. 20 hours. Enough time to prepare, not enough time to feel safe. And somewhere above us, the countdown continues. The bunker feels smaller every hour. It's not the walls or the concrete. It's what's inside them. The people, the fear, the silence that screams louder than any explosion. Tensions flare like sparks in dry brush. A misplaced word, a glance held too long, and suddenly the fragile calm cracks. In the mess hall, I overhear a heated exchange. "Why are you always so on edge?" One soldier snaps, voice low but sharp. "We all want to survive, but freaking out won't help." Another replies, voice tight. "Easy for you to say. You don't have kids waiting for you at home." They stare, breath shallow, eyes darting, a battle of wills beneath the surface. Around them, others watch silently, some nodding, others looking away. I can feel it too, the pressure, coiling tighter with every passing hour. People are exhausted, and fear makes strangers out of us all. In the quiet moments, I catch myself questioning everything. Will I ever see sunlight again? Will this place become my tomb? But there's no room for those thoughts. Not yet. We patch up our cracked nerves with jokes that don't quite land and stories from better days. We hold on to whatever humanity we can find in the shadows. Because here, beneath the weight of the world, we're not just waiting for the end. We're fighting to hold ourselves together. The radios have started to falter. Static bleeds into every channel. Frequencies crackle with bursts of white noise, swallowing words before they fully form. In the comms room, a lone operator named Elena sits hunched over her console, fingers dancing nervously across dials and switches. She's been trying for hours to hold a signal, any signal, from outside the bunker. Sometimes she catches a phrase, a word, a broken sentence. Attack imminent. Hold position. All units retreat. But just as quickly, the connection fractures, replaced by an empty hiss or distorted bursts. Elena doesn't speak much. Her world has shrunk to this chair and these fading voices. She wears headphones that seem too big for her, shielding her from the bunker's restless noise. The others come and go, checking in, but they don't expect miracles. Yet every time the radio flickers to life, there's a flicker of hope, a chance that someone somewhere is still out there, still fighting, still trying. But the silence always returns, thick and suffocating. It's a reminder that in war, the loudest sound is often no sound at all. And as the signals grow weaker, so does the hope. 2 hours remain. The bunker buzzes with a nervous energy, thick and unrelenting. Outside, the rumble of engines breaks the heavy silence as the U.S. Air Force's E-4B Night Watch, the so-called Doomsday plane, lifts off from Andrews Air Force Base. This massive flying command center is built to keep the nation's leadership in the air during a nuclear attack or other catastrophic events. It's armored, equipped with advanced communication systems, and designed to survive even a direct hit. Tonight, it carries the president and top officials into the uncertain skies, a last refuge, a mobile fortress beyond reach. Back inside the bunker, the news spreads quickly. For some, it's a grim reassurance, a sign that preparations are underway. For others, it's a bitter reminder of how close the threat really is. The commander's face tightens. Some soldiers exchange worried glances. Voices rise quietly at first, whispered fears and questions without answers. A young soldier sinks to the floor, overwhelmed, while a mother soothes her child with trembling hands. In the command center, technicians race to keep lines open, shouting terse updates while battling their own rising panic. The veteran officer who stood so steady now runs a hand through his hair, eyes dark with worry. Jokes are forced, smiles faint. Every breath feels heavier. And underneath it all, the crushing weight of not knowing what comes next. 2 hours remain. The countdown is relentless. And in this underground vault, we prepare to face the unknown. The bunker falls into an eerie silence. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of waiting. Heavy, thick, almost tangible. It's the kind of quiet that makes every small sound echo like thunder. The scrape of a boot against concrete, the soft rustle of fabric, the cough of a soldier trying to steady his nerves, the low hum of machines that never truly stop. The tension that's been coiled tight these past hours now feels stretched thin, like a fragile wire ready to snap at any moment. I catch my own breath and realize it's shallow, uneven, the body's instinct to brace for impact, even when the mind tries to stay calm. Around me, faces are calm, almost expressionless, but their eyes betray a storm of thoughts and fears beneath the surface. Some stare blankly at the concrete walls. Others close their eyes, as if willing the world to freeze for just a moment longer. The weight of what's coming presses down on every soul here. It's in the silence between words, in the pause before each breath. Memories flash through my mind like distant echoes. Laughter in sunlit parks, the gentle sway of trees in the breeze, the warmth of a hand held tight. All of it feels distant now, like fragile dreams slipping through trembling fingers. Yet in this stillness, there's something delicate, a fleeting calm before the storm, a rare moment to gather strength, to steel the heart, to prepare for the unknown that waits beyond these walls. Whispers of prayers, soft murmurs shared between strangers, echo faintly in the darkness. We wait together, not as isolated individuals, but as a fragile collective bound by fate and fear. And we listen for the first sign, for the sound that will change everything, for the moment when the quiet breaks and the world will never be the same again. confirmation came with brutal clarity. The missiles are on their way. All detected launches have originated from Russian soil. The data is indisputable. Multiple warheads are headed straight for the United States, with Washington among the primary targets. The command center buzzes with urgent updates, the sterile glow of monitors reflecting the grave reality. Outside, the E-4B Night Watch, the Doomsday plane, soars high above the clouds, a flying fortress keeping the nation's leadership aloft and connected, prepared to manage the crisis from the skies. Down here in the bunker, a heavy silence falls. The countdown that once felt distant now looms impossibly close. Hearts race, breaths catch. Then, a low rumble, deep and terrifying, shakes the very walls around us. The bunker trembles, a violent shudder that rattles equipment and echoes in every bone. Seconds pass in frozen horror. Then, another and another. The sound grows, a relentless barrage of distant detonations, each one a brutal strike against the world above. The walls shudder again and again, as if the very earth itself is being torn apart. A symphony of destruction, carrying with it the weight of irrevocable change. Some clutch the nearest supports. Others close their eyes against the roaring chaos. The air vibrates with the force of each blast, the ground beneath trembling like a living thing in agony. And through it all, the grim realization settles in. This is no longer a threat. This is war. The nightmare has truly begun. And in this underground fortress, we hold on to each other, to hope, to the fragile promise of survival. As the echoes of the bombardment fade, the grim truth begins to crystallize. This was not just an attack. It was the largest, most devastating coordinated strike ever recorded in human history. More missiles launched than in any previous conflict. More destruction wrought than the combined fury of World War II. Reports filter in from surveillance and monitoring systems. Washington's military command centers have suffered critical hits. Communication hubs lie in ruins. Power substations are dark and lifeless. Iconic landmarks, symbols of a nation's history and resilience, stand scarred and battered. But amid the devastation, no new launches have been detected. For now, the skies remain eerily quiet beyond the initial storm. The possibility, faint and fragile, that this onslaught might be the opening salvo, not an endless barrage. Inside the bunker, tension remains high, but is tinged with cautious hope. No immediate threat beyond what has already fallen. Yet the air is thick with uncertainty. This is no longer a distant fear or a shadow looming on the horizon. The Third World War has begun. History has been rewritten in fire, steel, and shattered stone. And beneath the weight of this new reality, we brace ourselves for the battles ahead, for the losses yet to come, for the uncertain road that lies beyond the ruins. Despite the devastation, one truth remains unshaken. The strength of the United States endures. The nation has faced dark times before, and though this attack cuts deep, it will not break the spirit of its people. Leaders and citizens alike vow that these losses, these precious lives taken, will not be forgotten. The call for justice, for retribution, echoes through the halls of power. In a rare and solemn address broadcast from the airborne E-4B Night Watch, the president's voice is steady but resolute. He promises that America will not only endure, but will respond with overwhelming force. Those responsible for this assault will be held accountable, he declares. We will honor the fallen by protecting our nation, by standing united, and by ensuring that justice is served. Far from shrinking back, the country's military forces mobilize with fierce determination. Every branch, every unit ready to defend, to retaliate, to protect what remains. Across the ocean, Russia claims responsibility for the attacks. Their message is cold and unyielding. This is the price America must pay for NATO's expansion, for decades of tension rooted in the Cold War. They call it a necessary reckoning. But to those who live in the bunker, and to the millions watching from below, it is a declaration of war, and the world stands on the edge of an uncertain future, where resolve and reckoning will shape what comes next. The world we knew has vanished, replaced by a harsh new reality. From the ashes of destruction, the survivors rise. In underground bunkers, in shattered cities, in quiet corners far from the chaos, humanity clings to life. The path ahead is uncertain and fraught with peril. But in this darkness, a spark remains. A spark of resilience, of hope, of unwavering determination. We carry the memory of those lost, the lessons of what has come before, and the will to rebuild. No matter how deep the shadows, the human spirit finds a way to shine. This is not the end. It is a beginning. And as the world slowly awakens from the nightmare, one truth stands clear. We endure. We survive. And together, we will face whatever comes next.